In the last few weeks, hundreds of images of hospitals' rooms, packed in China, are taking into account social media. Did you see an image like this? I don't even need to say that fear has provoked the whole world, especially because we are still being dragged away from the last viral outbreak that happened in the turn of this decade, in the middle of 2020. Chinese authorities say there is no reason for so much to be alarmed, but in fact, the Center for Disease Prevention and Control, a country's last traumatic experience, issued an alert saying that an unusual moment is being observed. In cases of infection by Metapneumovirus human, HMPV, a virus that affects respiratory routes and can cause flu symptoms, HMPV is already an old known thing known to us and was categorized for the first time in 2001. From there to here, it has been observed closely and has not caused us great headaches in the last 25 years. However, the sudden increase did not turn on an alert signal in the scientific community, mainly because it is still not possible to explain the real reason for this. Will the metapneumovirus human become potentially dangerous for us? Are we running the risk of having a new world pandemic? Let's tell you everything we know about this case from now on. According to John Williams, pediatrician and infectious disease professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, the metapneumovirus human has been circulating for at least 60 years between us. Genetic evolutionary studies point out that the most probable is that it has been divided from a bird virus between 200 and 400 years ago, as has already happened in other cases. A doctor who has been researching HMPV for more than 20 years said that this virus causes regular seasonal epidemics, similar to the influenza virus and the more widely known RSV. The typical season of HMPV is from the end of winter to the beginning of spring, so this is not totally unexpected. As I said, the first time this virus was identified, this is because its genome was sequenced, and researchers saw that it was a new type of infectious agent. It was in 2001 in the Netherlands. From there to here, several studies have already been done, pointing out, for example, that it is part of a viral family already known by us, the Pneumoviridae, which includes known species, like the science virus RSV, responsible for most of the children's interactions, with bronchitis and bronchiolite symptoms. This means that HMPV circulates in the world for some time, which is relatively good, because it means that a good part of the population may have had some kind of contact that generates the famigerated immunity of the disease, which was so much heard at the time of the COVID-19. In Brazil, for example, the first time the virus was identified was in 2004. Since then, it has spread throughout the national territory. According to Flavio Fonseca, professor of the Department of Microbiology and the Federal Department of Minas Gerais. But what is the Pneumoviridae that the human can cause us? How is it part of the viral category that reaches the respiratory lines? It is precisely there that it causes its impact. After HMPV is transmitted to a person, it stores itself in the nose, throat, and the beginning of the trachea, where it will reproduce to be able to spread to another individual. During this process in which the virus is using our body to be able to multiply, it ends up generating a series of responses in our body that become symptoms of the disease caused by this infection. Among them are nasal congestion, throat pain, cough, and fever, classic signs of a cold or common flu. In most cases, this does not happen and the person recovers alone after a few days. However, as it happened with SARS-CoV-2, the causative agent of COVID-19, symptoms may evolve into more serious cases, especially among people who are called risk group. They are very young children who did not have an earlier experience with the virus, and those who have an immune system, such as patients with cancer or HIV. In this way, as there are people who may suffer serious consequences with an infection, it is clear that this disorder needs to be observed carefully, and all the measures needed must be taken so that the sudden increase in cases is controlled, especially because compared to the flu, RSV, and COVID-19, there is not yet a specific vaccine for the metapneumovirus human. Not even antivirus medications that are effective to curb the reproduction of the virus in our body. But does this mean that we are the head of a new pandemic? Well, it's not like that. When we deal with complex issues like this one, which involve various biologists, politicians, economists, and scientists, it is quite difficult to make an exact prediction of what will happen. Even so, most specialists agree that this disorder should not evolve into something greater, at least not at a global level, as it happened in 2020, a moment in the number of cases already expected at this time of the year in the North Hemisphere, since they are in the winter and respiratory viruses behave in seasonal ways. In other words, they are more resistant to the cold and therefore they spread better at this time of the year. The fact that people spend more time in closed environments also favors contamination. That is why we say it is common to have a slight increase. In the last weeks of December, the U.S. Department of Disease Control measured a rate of 2% of positive tests for metapneumovirus of the human virus in people who were looking for medical aid with flu symptoms. At the same time, 19% of the tests indicated that patients were infected with influenza virus, and 7% with SARS-CoV-2, responsible for COVID. According to Dr. Carla Garcia Carreno, Director of Prevention and Infection Control at Children's Medical Center, it is necessary that there is a 10% of weekly diagnosis for a disease to be considered. This is a local dissemination that should attract the attention of doctors and responsible authorities. On the American continent, this number is still far from becoming a reality. Thank God. However, William Schaffner, medical, infectious and professor at the Vanderbilt University Medical Center, said that in Asia, the numbers are already quite expressive, especially in China, which can indicate that there really is an epidemic, a local outbreak. Several cases were also notified in neighboring countries, such as Asia, India, and Kazakhstan, which made neighboring nations start reinforcing vigilance on the borders. But Schaffner makes it clear that there is still no reason to panic, at least for now. According to Con Bile, Director of National Institute for Disease Prevention and Prevention, the high in cases is concentrated in the northern provinces, where it is colder, and the most affected people are children and teenagers up to 14 years old. But beyond seasonal pre-existing, what can be causing the increase in the number of cases? This is the key question that could really indicate if there is a reason to worry about us or not. Well, first of all, it is true that we are all hypervigilant now, after everything happened. So any sign, several alerts are issued so that the entire world can get ready. This is the opinion of Dr. Jacqueline Stevens, Professor of Public Health of Flinders University in Australia. This means that it is quite likely that we will have more alerts like these, so that we can act presently. And so we hope that new alerts do not become new pandemics. As part of this new policy, it is common for several countries to increase the number of tests in people who are looking for medical treatment. Who has never been frustrated by a consultation with a genetic diagnosis of a virus? The trend here in the future is that these viruses begin to receive their due names, so that viruses and diseases can be carefully cataloged and accompanied throughout the time. Being so, it is even possible that we have already survived a fear of metapneumovirus before, but only now are cases being carefully counted, which is scary, of course, at the first moment. In this specific case, the HMPV can usually be confirmed by direct detection of the viral genome by the amplification test of nucleic acid, or direct detection of viral antigens in respiratory secretions using immunofluorescence or enzymatic immunoexamination. But of course there is a third hypothesis, one that nobody wants to be correct. The professor of virology at the University of Warwick, Andrew Easton, said that the main causes of the increase in the diagnosis of a viral disease are alteration in people's behavior or mutations in the viral genome. The first cause can be explained by the hypotheses that we have already mentioned: hypervigilance after the COVID-19 pandemic and increase in the number of tests. However, if we were to change the genetic of the virus, this could be worrying. Unfortunately, we do not have this answer yet. since we need to do advanced studies with the seeds that are circulating to exclude or confirm this possibility. But Andrew Easton remains optimistic and says that this scenario, although possible, is quite unlikely. What we can do is what we have already learned with the last pandemic. As any other respiratory virus, the HMPV spreads through contact with microparticles that emit autoceria and spit or even speak. Therefore, we must always wash our hands, avoid large agglomerations at these times of the year, and stay at home when we are in any condition, wearing a mask when you go to the doctor or when you are unable to leave. Stay safe and connected to our channel. We can return to any moment with new information. Thank you very much for your company. Always very special. Until the next video.